What's 100 million? I'm super proud of where we've come, but I think you're going to find that our fastest growth and our biggest growth is right before us now. And we try to maintain this startup mentality. We try to maintain a startup culture, very entrepreneurial culture, even as we get bigger and create more layers and management like we need to support that kind of growth.
Green Hills Mall, right next to Santa Claus, which I feel like is appropriate because I'm getting to interview a very jolly character in Shawn Nelson.
If you try and sit on my lap, it's going to get weird, man.
We're going to have a problem real quick.
We're going to have a problem. In here. Okay, what's going on?
Just got a starter kit couch.
What?
Yeah.
We came by 2 months ago thinking you were open and you weren't open yet.
Oh no.
Yeah,
sorry.
Now,
it's our real estate department. Pop-up shop to the grand opening to this interview. These guys, the startup show, wanted to sit down and talk entrepreneurship. Of course, share the Shawnism with you. The first answer is always yes. I don't know who they are. In fact, it appears that they themselves are a startup. But they heard I was coming to Nashville. They had reached out to interview me anyway. And they jumped on it, right? Oh, Shawn's gonna be in Nashville, let's do it in person. Because you always jump on opportunities as an entrepreneur. First answer is always yes.
Shawn just put this in his vlog, which you guys should check out. What's your vlog called?
That's right. Just find me on YouTube. The vlog's called Get Off the Couch. You can find Shawn Nelson, Lovesac. You'll find me. I'm easy to find.
Yeah. Shawn, the startup show is all about how people go from an idea to actually executing. And even if that idea is really, really small, that's initially what attracted me to you, because I've heard snippets of your story and that your idea was kind of almost a joke at first, right?
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could say I had more vision, but I just thought it would be funny to make a really, really, really big beanbag, right? So I got off the couch, and that's kind of been my ethos ever since, but drove down to the fabric store, bought the fabric, brought it back, cut it out, and next thing I knew, I had this giant thing that I didn't realize would take me like 3 weeks to stuff. Like,
wow.
Of putting crap in it.
Where is that? Is that beanbag somewhere?
Well, that's the funny thing. People ask me that all the time. Where's the first Lovesac? And that's the proof that I never intended this to even become a business, right? I'm sure I would have kept it, right?
Yeah.
Once I finally started making more of them, eventually I had better ones, so I got rid of it.
Oh, no.
No, but it was just an idea that I had and went and did, and I did it immediately, and I think that ethos has always worked out for me. That's why I do the vlog. I had the idea to do a vlog, so I picked up my phone one day and started filming. And now, I'm 130 episodes in, and it's becoming something.
Yeah, that's awesome. And for you guys listening to this, we will link up the vlog down in the comments so that you guys can check it out. Obviously, from there to now is pretty different. How many stores do you guys have?
So we have about 65 Lovesac stores in high-end malls around the country. We just opened here in Nashville. We're really excited to be here finally. This particular spot is a pop-up shop we did this morning. Jessie James Decker, singer, social media phenom now, has her own fashion line. So we kind of collaborated with her. I think Lovesac's really finally about to break out, which is ironic because we have less than 1% awareness.
Wow.
Nationwide.
Wow.
Even at 65 proper locations. Yeah. Well, that gives you an idea of how big the country is. You know what I'm saying? And so we're finally, obviously through digital media and everything else, really starting to come up. But we've got a long way to go.
What I was going to ask you is how have you evolved from this little scrappy startup to being the behemoth? But you kind of, in some ways, are saying you still have that mindset of being the startup.
Well, what's 100 million? You know what I mean? And what I mean by that is it's crazy to me that we could be at the size we are and still have such small penetration, right? And part of it's because we sell big things, right? So these things might be $500, $1,000, $5,000 for our couches. Right. And so it doesn't take selling that many compared to, say, T-shirts to get to, say, 100 million, right?
Right.
But it's still somewhere, and I'm super proud of where we've come, but I think you're going to find that our fastest growth and our biggest growth is right before us now,
Awesome.
and just on the horizon. So it's weird. We've both made it and are just beginning at the same time,
Yeah.
right? And we try to maintain this startup mentality. We try to maintain a startup culture, very entrepreneurial culture, even as we get bigger and create more layers and in management like we need to support that kind of growth.
Yeah.
So it's been technically about 20 years since we began. Very small. You gotta understand, for the first few years, it was me and a few buddies in college,
Right.
just making this stuff to be funny. A few years after that, we got one big order and built a little factory. So, this is just sort of one step at a time grown.
Yeah.
In fact, the first 3 years of running this thing, I was a waiter. That's how I paid my bills. Like,
Wow.
this thing made me zero money, probably cost me money.
It was just your
It was like
passion.
a side hustle,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then came that fateful day when you've got to just come in with both feet. We built that factory, did that first big order.
Yeah.
And then we had no money still and no other clients. And so we ended up having to open a retail store almost out of desperation because there was no one else who wanted to carry our stuff at the time. And so we just opened a retail store, and who knew, that really worked. So it's been a saga, but so more than 20 years of just kind of doing the next thing.
Yeah.
So I'll take you all the way back to the startup days. And this was before we were making any money. I'm on the floor of my parents' basement with fabric rolled out, and my mom comes down and sees me sitting there cutting out these giant beanbag things that we would take to the neighbor lady who'd sew them up. And she saw me kind of on my hands and knees and said, kind of politely, but is this what you want to do? And I looked up at her, and she knew, I was an honor student. I spoke Mandarin Chinese. I have this, I'd done a lot already, and I could go get some great job.
Sure.
I was about to graduate. And I don't know, man. I looked up at her and I said, I just feel like I should. And I think that's kind of been my instinct all along. I just always felt like I should do the next thing. And of course, now we're in this place where, fast forward all these years, we sell more couches than Lovesacs. We invented this really cool product called Sactionals, modular, changeable, rearrangeable.
We're sitting on one.
We're sitting on them.
Yeah.
We didn't necessarily know it at the time, but we have effectively created the only couch for the internet. The way that it packs down into these tiny boxes that can be FedExed, and then of course expanded into as big of sectional as you could possibly ever want. You can make anything out of these things.
And by the way, you did this 12 years ago. This isn't like
that was 12 years
because
in.
Of Casper or
no, this was long after the SAC and long before Casper. And so, it took us a few years to perfect the product. Took us a few years to figure out how to convert what was a beanbag brand into a home decor brand.
Right.
That soccer moms would shop at. They're shopping at Pottery Barn.
Yep.
And they're shopping at Lovesac, and we have to be that good.
Yeah.
So that took a long time to make that brand transition. And now we wake up in this day where, retail model is absolutely being disrupted heavily by what's happening in digital. And we happen to have the only couch product that's really suited for the masses.
Yeah. So it's really, you've just been following your gut kind of throughout the entire, even I was asking you earlier, why did you start a vlog? And you're like, I felt like I should.
Absolutely.
Kinda, yeah.
And I think it's funny, the longer I'm in business, the more I believe in instinct. I believe in the two equally, instincts and rigorous business discipline. But the nice thing about being an entrepreneur is you can always hire rigorous business discipline.
Yeah. Yep.
And so if you're a true entrepreneur, you probably have heavy instincts and you probably naturally lean toward them and even take criticism.
In your sense, that's developed that gut over time, and now you can kind of really trust that, along with, I'm sure you guys have a ton of great data folks that are providing you with that.
Absolutely. Well, and I don't just do everything that comes into my head.
Yeah.
And in fact, I think with the more experience I have, the more that I will pay attention to my instincts, but not necessarily act on them in that moment. I thought about doing a vlog for quite a little while before I actually pulled the trigger.
Okay.
And I really do believe it's becoming something neat. I think my way of doing, I'm not Gary Vaynerchuk, but I'm not Gary Vaynerchuk. My whole personality MO is different than that.
Yep.
But I think can have its own path to success and its own path to influence people. And I'm seeing it every day. People reach out, and it's really cool to hear what they have to say.
It's funny you mentioned Gary. He was on the show recently, a few weeks ago,
right.
And the takeaway for me, the biggest one was talking about the necessity of humility. Entrepreneurship has all of this really maverick, go do it on your own, go whatever around it, which is great, and it appeals to people. But the part that I am still working on and thinking through is just the humility it takes to be like, I hired you. I know you know what you're talking about. I'm just going to trust you because I put you in that position. So that's how you kind of scale yourself in certain ways, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, there's nothing more limiting than the entrepreneur who actually somewhere in their mind believes that they're the best at everything. And I've been that guy. That's the thing about most entrepreneurs. They're good at a lot of things.
Right.
And they may even be excellent at a few key things, better than anyone they could hire. But if you can't get people to come, successfully do things for you or hopefully do things better than you, you'll never scale. You really won't. I mean, you can get to a certain level, but you'll never get to the big time. It takes a lot of humility and a lot of discipline. Yeah. A lot of self-regulation, a lot of self-awareness, which I know Gary talks about all the time. It's something I've said for a long time. People ask me, what's the key to success? And my answer is always self-awareness, because it underlies everything. Like you have to modulate your own thoughts, your own behavior, and it's tricky because there is no handbook for it. Know when to assert yourself and stand on principle, stand on instinct, and I would again err toward letting the people you surround yourself err toward that. Because man, you only have so much political capital in life, right? And the more you shut people down or dishearten them with criticism, at the end of the day, you're going to squish those people till they're useless. Yeah. Egotistical entrepreneur that knew how to do everything better. And
is that why the hair was so spiky?
Yeah, I don't know. I can't explain the hair.
I like it.
So, it's what are you going to say? Early 2000. But no, but I think many entrepreneurs go through that phase, and some never escape it. And I think, unfortunately, I wasn't seeking out mentors, and I wasn't, listening to podcasts or reading necessarily the right books, or at least being in the mindset to hear it. And if I had, I don't know. Look, there's a lot of things that I would have done differently, could have done. But over time, certainly I think developed the capacity to modulate my behavior. I mean, literally, this, I'll make it real. Like, literally, right? This meeting I had on my calendar an hour earlier, which caused me to blow off a lunch with someone else because I was waiting. And then it turns out, it was just booked wrong on my calendar. And that made me very frustrated for a minute.
Sorry.
No, it wasn't. You didn't send me the invite. Yeah. It was internal. Okay. Right. And so, but the thing is, I don't really care. I get upset for 1 second because, oh, shoot, now, that would have been better to have it, Right. But I can either rip into someone who made that happen for me and demoralize them and then make them, frankly, not really want to work for me anymore. Right. Or just make them less effective in the future or make them timid. So now they're but a little bit of making sure that I don't let things necessarily just go unsaid. Sure. But the key is I don't care if that happens, really. I care that it doesn't happen again.
You have the big picture in mind.
I care that, we pay close enough attention to detail in the future that something doesn't, and I think anyone who works close to me knows that about me, right? I will dig in on something, but it's not I don't care about what just happened. Yeah. I care, how can we make sure that doesn't happen again? Yeah. And how can I put a system in place that this doesn't happen again? And you just got to accept the failures that happen day to day, minute to minute, and let them be, always focusing on the bigger picture.
I love that. Yeah. You talked earlier about the power of digital and how it's changing and how you've kind of thrived in this transition. A lot of companies are not thriving in this transition time.
Malls have it tough right now.
Yeah, and talking all about scaling, like you've done it in this time period. So I'm curious, how do you see the balance specifically for folks who have an idea that is, I have a friend who's doing a nutrition company and he has to have a storefront. Where do you see that evolving as we continue in digital versus retail?
Yeah, I mean, this is a big conversation. It's one that everyone in business is having. And there's a lot of people that can very easily, flippantly say something like, oh, retail's dead, malls are dying. All of these things are only partially true, right? Malls are dying, but not all the malls, right? So there are 1,000 malls in the U.S., but the U.S. really only maybe needs 200 or 300 really good ones.
Which apparently this is one.
This is one of them.
It took us 10 minutes to park.
That's correct. So, and even this mall is having trouble because, in general, so many retailers are getting disrupted by digital, right? And so there's no question that retail, brick and mortar retail is being disrupted by digital, but it will shrink. It will change. The economics will change. Like, for instance, it's possible that you got to go all the way to the root, right? Like the loans, let's say, the financing that supports building a multi-billion-dollar facility like this, might have to let go of the reins a little bit, take a little bit less of a return, allowing retail brick and mortar owners to demand a little bit lower rent over time to compete with the digital.
Gotcha.
Because people will still want to come. For instance, I had a customer say this today, like they've been following us for 2 years, but they just never got a chance to sit on it, and they weren't about to spring $4,000 or $5,000, and so they really wanted to come. And now we open a store here, so now they got that chance.
Yeah.
So we're going to lean into it. I mean, we're going to open 15 more next year.
Wow.
And even faster. But meanwhile, of course, our fastest growing channel is absolutely digital.
Right.
And so the economics will change. It's got to change all the way down the chain. And unfortunately, linked economics like that might take decades to fully work out.
Deeply rooted.
And maybe require whole resets. I mean, you're going to see major crisis come out of this, right? Like, so as some of these malls actually die, the worst of them, not just the malls, strips, who knows what, all kinds of brick and mortar retail. There's going to be a place for brick and mortar. I think stores are going to shrink. I know, that's where we at Lovesac are uniquely positioned, because we have tiny stores that generate huge sales because we're selling big ticket items. So we happen to have really unique economics. And of course, a product that is digitally ready in that it can be shipped and everything.
I saw you say somewhere your stores are one of the top sales per square foot in retail, period, right? Not just for furniture.
Yeah, so we have the highest sales per square foot in furniture, our industry, and top 10 in all retailers, with Apple at the top. My goal is to be second only to Apple. And I think we can get there.
Man, well, I have to ask you, because with everything changing around us and even your model changing constantly, if you, let's say tomorrow is when Shawn stuffs the first beanbag chair, right? What would your go-to-market strategy be for that startup?
Today, you mean?
Yeah, like if you're starting in right now and you don't have the legacy and you don't have the brand and all of that kind of thing that you guys enjoy, kind of walk us through just what your initial thought would be.
Yeah, so number one is focus as narrowly as possible. There was a time in our timeline where we were into rugs and lamps and bowls and baskets. And because we were a home deck store, it seemed to make sense, right? But focus is so key, right? And so, if you're making that first Lovesac, focus longer than you even feel like you need to, right? Like, it's so tempting for every entrepreneur to always be on to what's next. And it's tricky because you look, everyone who's creative goes there, and of course it's fun to go there. But it's kind of like now, like right now, my own family, I invented Sactionals many years ago.
Right.
And like I said, it took a few years to figure them out, took a few years to modulate the business. And so my own friends, will say, so what's next, man? And I'll tell you what's next if I'm a good business person. Sell more Sactionals. Because last time I checked, even at 100 million, we are not even 1% of the industry, right? So if I can take a few points, a few percents of this massive industry that's called couches, you have a multi-billion-dollar company off of one product, man. I never have to invent another thing ever again. It's not that I won't.
No, but I get what you're saying.
Right? And so what's next? More digital marketing, more collaborations with celebrities. How can I get the word out, and how can I do more of what we're good at? And it's so tempting for us ADD-ridden, creative entrepreneurs to always be asking ourselves even what's next, and then we get down strange roads, make huge business mistakes because we do lack the focus that it takes to take it to real scale. You have to face, like, am I passionate about this really, or am I just passionate about business?
Right.
If you're just passionate about business, find a way to install someone else to run this business and go on to the next one. But if you're passionate about that thing, and for me, that's evolved. Like, how passionate could I be about giant foam bean bags? That's not exactly curing cancer. But as we've invented Sactionals, it's opened the doors to, oh my gosh, we happen to have also invented a couch that could be with you the rest of your life because it can grow with you and change with you. And we build it really, really, really well. Well, if that's true, then it becomes a really cool, sustainable option for the world in couches, because 30% of our landfills are furniture. My furniture can actually stay with you, not just because it's well built, but because it can change and grow with you as you change, right? Your family grows or whatever. And all of a sudden I realized, holy crap, And now we're making all of our fabric, underneath out of plastic bottles going forward. So we will become very soon the single biggest redirector of plastic bottles from the waste stream into a product that will now be in your house for potentially decades.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I'm changing the world through selling more of this. And so once I align more mission, purpose-driven goals with, very crass goals of, hey, let's get to 1 billion.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, holy crap, I don't mind doing this the rest of my life. And in fact, I have this vision for manufacturing that goes further and how that will change not only the environment, but it might change the business model for many manufacturers. So all of a sudden, this thing that where I may be relegated to just selling more seats and sides, these two things for 10 years or something, I can get great gratification from, because I'm actually building a bigger mission that I think will affect the world in a good way.
And by the way, you're providing for your family and all these other families that are...
Oh, and then there's that.
Yeah.
Then there's that. And you wake up one day and how cool is it? Like, honestly, look, I've never exited a company. Legitimately, I'm still just running the same company I started 10 days out of high school.
Yeah.
How weird is that? Right? At
Yeah,
40 years old,
mind-boggling.
man, 4 kids. But to be honest with you, because that's where I come from, I'm just thankful for, I make good money now, got great health benefits, my kids are happy, and eventually, it's going to pay off, hopefully in the millions and millions. But you don't need billions to be super happy and gratified in your work. In fact, I know many billionaires that frankly aren't super happy with their life, And so I think it's important to, again, be super self-aware. Like, what is it that you really are amped about? Maybe it is money. Maybe it's just being in business and and maybe the hustle, or maybe it's the actual industry you're working in.
That's so good. I think that's so good for me and for a lot of our listeners who are trying to get through just that first one. And it's so easy to get caught up in the details of the weeds, but having that bigger picture, and then align. I'm already, my mind's racing just on how we can align better to some of our core values as people. For the work that we're doing as well. Yeah,
and listen, every day we read stories about, oh my gosh, 2 years in, they're at 200 million in sales and they're worth $1 billion, and so-and-so wants to buy them. For every headline you read like that about entrepreneurs, there are 10,000, maybe 100,000 more that are just in the grind like you and like me, and that, did I intend to even 5 years, 10 years, 20 years in to still be making Lovesacs? Certainly not, right, when I started down this path. But you know what? It's not a bad life. And in fact, I'm really proud of what we're doing. And it's evolved in ways I could not have possibly conceived of in the beginning. So I think you just got to have faith that, if you can create income and profitability, right, and success for you and those around you, that there will be doors that will open that you can't imagine. Right? You can't fathom them at this moment. And there'll be good doors and good things will come of that. And so just keep grinding, and don't worry so much about, I don't know where this is going to go, and I don't know if I'm making the right decision. Just keep grinding, man. Just keep going.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Shawn, for making time for us while you're here in Nashville. You've been an awesome guest. Anything that you want to let people know about or say before we sign off?
I heard a great quote early on, in fact, that I don't think I fully understood, but it was, you're more likely to choke on opportunity than you are to starve for the lack thereof, right? Like, if you just keep grinding, doors will open, things will find you. And in fact, the hard part is not doing too much. And so I began by saying, the first answer is always yes, right? If there's an opportunity, just say yes, get in the car, drive down here, let's have wherever it may lead. Same thing for me. I'm always saying yes, but then you have to very quickly assess what it is you're doing all the time and carve out most things, right? And say no to many of them, because otherwise you'll never get anywhere. You'll just be doing everything.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for coming on the show, and congrats on all your success, and we're going to keep watching.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. Congrats on your own success.
Thanks.